So as Jordan just said, this isn't a very sexy topic, but the Jones Act is something that's going to be incredibly instrumental in whether or not Puerto Rico gets the aid that it needs. I'm going to go through an explanation for you guys. Just bear with me. I think it will really pay off. The Trump administration said it is evaluating whether to waive U.S. shipping restrictions for Puerto Rico, where residents are without power after 2 devastating hurricanes. A decision on the issue is unlikely to be made Wednesday, senior Department of Homeland Security officials said, as DHS works with other parts of the government to make a determination. The Trump administration has faced fierce backlash following reports on Tuesday that the agency would not be temporarily lifting the Jones Act rule, which requires that cargo shipments between U.S. ports only take place on American-made and operated vessels. Several members of Congress have requested a 1-year Jones Act waiver for Puerto Rico, where officials estimate the island could be without power for up to 6 months. So this is a very old rule, which I'll continue to explain, but it essentially is about Puerto Rico getting shipments from only ships that the United States has flagged as like friendly to their economic interests, or U.S. ships themselves, and this is hamstringing Puerto Rico that is in need of any and all supplies that it could possibly get. So I'll continue explaining. The Jones Act is a century-old shipping law that is often accused of stifling the Puerto Rican economy. Nydia Velázquez, a Puerto Rican-born congresswoman who represents parts of New York City, has said she will ask Congress for a 1-year waiver to the Jones Act requirements for the territory. It's a good example of a policy question that will test Washington's willingness to change its approach to Puerto Rico wholesale, to reconsider, in other words, whether Puerto Rican status as citizens without full rights is really working. Among other things, the Jones Act requires that domestic shipping be conducted by U.S.-owned, U.S.-made ships staffed by American crews. That means, for example, that all food from the mainland, and Puerto Rico imports 85% of what it consumes, must be brought in U.S. ships. The law was passed just after World War I with the intention of ensuring that America remained a nation of shipbuilders and seamen during the time of peace so that the populace might be worthy seafarers in times of war. So even the wording of that sounds incredibly old-fashioned. It was a World War I provision that is now stifling Puerto Rico and really harming its citizenry. Under the law, any foreign registry vehicle that enters Puerto Rico must pay punitive tariffs, fees, and taxes, which are passed on to the Puerto Rican consumer. Thanks to the law, the price of goods from the United States mainland is at least double that in neighboring islands, including in the United States Virgin Islands, which are not covered by the Jones Act. So it's double in the U.S. Virgin Islands, also territory of the United States, but Puerto Rico is covered by this Jones Act, so you can use that as a point of comparison. Moreover, the cost of living in Puerto Rico is 13% higher than in 325 urban areas elsewhere in the United States, even though per capita income in Puerto Rico is about $18,000, close to half that of Mississippi, the poorest of all 50 states. And lastly, a 2012 report by the University of Puerto Rico economists found that the Jones Act caused a $17 billion loss to the island's economy from 1990 to 2010. Other studies have estimated that the Jones Act's damage to Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and Alaska would be a $2.8 billion to $9.8 billion harm every year. According to all these reports, if the Jones Act did not exist, then neither would the public debt of Puerto Rico. Let me just make this point because Trump went on Twitter and blamed essentially Puerto Rico for their own debt and not paying back Wall Street. He was supposed to protect Americans from Wall Street. That's what he said. Their debt is directly linked to this draconian law, the Jones Act, which is extremely outdated, that Trump is refusing to suspend even when they're in the throes of this horrific crisis.
And we'll figure out a better way to do the mic, but I'm glad the audio seems to be working now. So a few things to this. Number one, isn't Trump like this world-class manager and his whole thing was cutting red tape? I heard it on the campaign trail over and over and over again. Regulations are killing, bureaucracy's killing, you know, the big, bad, evil empire of government is killing jobs and killing innovation and yada, yada, yada. I don't think he's wrong in terms of some of the red tape, but the red tape he's talking about is not the red tape I'm talking about. However, really, it's as simple as the Department of Defense makes the request to Homeland Security, and Homeland Security makes an exception. This is what happened in Texas. Texas voted for Trump. And this is what happened in Florida with Irma. Florida voted for Trump, barely, but they voted for Trump. But Puerto Rico, who, if you watch my interview from yesterday, I really encourage you to watch it. It's 2 parts. It's very, I think, just devastating to listen to this woman. I tried to interview someone actually in Puerto Rico now, but I mean, there's no electricity, so it's nearly impossible. Via Skype, I mean. So, but this is as simple as a 2-week exception that they did for Texas and Florida. Well, the will was there for those people, predominantly white. Why isn't it there for Puerto Rico? I mean, if you watch my interview, and I've been doing my own homework, most Puerto Ricans don't want to be a part of America. It was forced upon America, in their terms, colonization. But if you're going to make them be a part of America, they should get the same treatment as the people in Texas, Florida, New York, or wherever there's a natural disaster. And I put natural in air quotes because it's not natural. It's climate change is making these from periodic once every 100 years, once every 50 years, to now once every 5 years, to now to, I believe, Irma and Maria were both a Category 3 and above in the span of 2 weeks hit Puerto Rico. So Trump and his administration could do this in 2 seconds, but they're thinking about money. They're thinking about money rather than people. Yeah. That's really what this is about. And the double standard between Puerto Rico versus Texas and Florida is astounding.
And also, I mean, this is modern day colonization. Because we have Puerto Rico as a territory, they can come to the United States and live here without passports. They have citizenship rights, but not real citizenship rights. I mean, similarly to the Jim Crow days or slavery or whatever, they are not full citizens because they are not afforded the same protections under the federal government. And it's disheartening to see people not really paying attention until now the media has been covering it. But what I've seen the comparison to is this is Trump's Katrina. And I think that that is a really apt comparison because Katrina, New Orleans, mostly black people. Puerto Rico, obviously Hispanic population. Both are minority groups that these Republican administrations don't care about. Bush did it in more coded language. Trump has openly said he doesn't care at all. And the fact that you're unwilling to suspend, not even do away with, this old rule that no one has known about until now. I mean, there's no chance in hell that Trump even knew what the Jones Act was. It just goes to show, just goes to show that it's not about doing what's right for Puerto Rico or being the best commander-in-chief possible. It's about money, and it's about, ooh, I would care a little bit more if these guys looked like me, and if they were contributing to the economy, which is Republican code for being a part of the corrupt system that we continue to prop up.
And let's just point out, because with Donald Trump, it's just always kind of hypocrisy. So as Emma was pointing out, Donald Trump on Twitter was saying, Texas and Florida are doing great, but Puerto Rico, which is already suffering from broken infrastructure and massive debt, is in deep trouble. Its old electrical grid, which was in terrible shape, was devastated. Much of the island was destroyed, with billions of dollars owed to Wall Street and the banks, which sadly must be dealt with. Food, water, and medical are top priorities. He also said yesterday in a press conference, we're doing a great job in with Puerto Rico, which kind of makes Bush to, you're doing a hell of a job, Brownie, seem like child's play. When you're talking about you're doing a great job, when 90% of the people in Puerto Rico have no water, have no food, people's dialysis machines don't work, people can't get their insulin for diabetics, and on and on and on. The looting going on that the corporate media talks about in a derogatory way is because people have no food or water. I'd fuck up some people to get some food and water. I think you would too. But guess who else owes money to Puerto Rico? Who do you think? Say it with me now. Donald Trump. So here's a quick story. Donald Trump is facing fresh scrutiny over the bankruptcy of a golf club he managed in Puerto Rico after blaming the Atlantic Ocean for his government's inadequate response to Hurricane Maria's devastation. The U.S. president said a thing called the Atlantic Ocean made it tough stuff for FEMA, the same department he's tried to cut severely. The U.S. Federal Disaster Relief Agency to respond to a crisis that has left 3.4 million people without electricity. Those comments have led to renewed claims that the 70-year-old owes the Islanders money himself after the failure of Cocoa Beach Golf Club, renamed the Trump International Golf Club, Puerto Rico, after the businessman took it over. The golf club collapsed following the recession, leaving Puerto Rican taxpayers out of pocket to the tune of $32.7 million, according to a bankruptcy court filing from the government. Amy Siskind, Hillary Clinton's campaigner, who worked on Clinton's campaign, has said Mr. Trump needs to pay them back. When Trump's Puerto Rico golf course went bankrupt, he left Puerto Rican taxpayers with $33 million bill, and he's blaming them. So I hate to agree with a Clinton campaign staffer, but she's right. I mean, it's kind of Donald Trump, this was kind of covered in the campaign, not enough. He owes more money than God to various countries, organizations. He has done all sorts of housing discrimination in the United States. That's how he and his father kind of rose in real estate. And it's just blatant hypocrisy when you're talking about, oh, they owe money to Wall Street and this and that. Well, I mean, you owe a lot of money to Puerto Rico. So I think that all these things, the Jones Act, Trump's, love affair with himself, saying they're doing a great job. Well, all it took me was 2 phone calls yesterday. Called one person in Houston, one person in Florida. Apparently, they're not doing such a great job down there. And by the way, in fairness, FEMA doesn't have enough resources as it is, right? So, and Trump's administration was trying to cut resources. So it is a daunting case when you have to deal with Texas and Florida and now Puerto Rico. Like, I'm not trying to be a Monday morning quarterback and just criticize to criticize. But number one, if your administration had some people with a brain that could observe climate change and its effects and forecast that these storms are getting more deadly, sea level rise becoming more arisen. There was just a story yesterday, another giant iceberg has broken off from Antarctica. So experts expect sea level to rise even more. Maybe you would be increasing funds, and maybe you would be preparing even further along for potential Category 3, 4, 5 hurricanes in areas that are basically on the water. So, we'll continue to cover this. I think that it's a good thing that the majority of mainland, us, are focused on this, because I think this is bringing out, beyond just the dire circumstances there now, it's bringing out the fact that most Puerto Ricans feel like they're second-class citizens as American citizens. And, that's wrong.